Hey guys, can you stop a vehicle if you have reasonable suspicion that somebody who has a DNA warrant is inside the vehicle? My name is Anthony Bandiero, attorney and senior legal instructor for Blue Gold Law Enforcement Training, bringing you another roadside chat. All right, so this question comes from an officer in South Dakota. He says he has prior knowledge of a burglary involving two suspects. He knows who these two suspects are. They're frickin' frack. They hang out together all the time. Now, they got DNA warrants, I guess, for both suspects. One of them is they're still looking for one of the suspects, right? They already got the DNA for the other suspect, and they're behind a vehicle, and they believe that the suspect who they have the DNA warrant for is in the vehicle. He's a passenger. Same build, same gender, known associations with the exact vehicle and person. So they have, reasonable suspicion that that passenger is the guy that they have the buckle warrant for. Can they stop the vehicle? I think the answer is yes. So we look at a few cases here. Number one is Terry versus Ohio, where if we have reasonable suspicion for criminal activity afoot, we can detain somebody. I know a DNA warrant is not your stereotypical Terry stop. However, it still would work, I believe, because you have a warrant, and that warrant allows you to seize that person and obtain their DNA. We also have Kansas versus Glover, which is, again, not directly on point, but this is where a officer had reasonable suspicion that the driver was the RO, even though he couldn't see him, but he figured that the driver was the driver was the RO. And why was that important? Because the RO had a bad license. He stopped the vehicle. Sure enough, the driver was the RO, and the driver tried to complain about that to the U.S. Supreme Court and say that that was a bad stop. And the Supreme Court said, no, reasonable suspicion allows you to make these stops and so forth. Here, you have reason to believe he's in a car. I see no problem with it. Now, a little pro tip would be to use Ren, which is a pretext stop. Ren is where you can stop a vehicle because they commit some kind of, minor traffic violation, but you don't necessarily, or not necessarily after that. In other words, if you are behind this vehicle and you can catch any kind of violation, signal issue, not staying in the lane, whatever, then you can pull the vehicle over, and then that will confirm or dispel, whether or not the passenger, is the person you're looking for. Regardless, you can still take care of the original traffic stop, but that's just one way to kind of get around this issue if you don't want to even deal with it, is just to look for a pretext stop. Now, if you're behind the vehicle for several minutes and you're just not seeing anything, then, you're going to have to make a decision about whether or not you're going to still try to stop it, believing that the passenger is the person with the DNA warrant. All right. Look, I like it. Keep the questions coming. If you like this and everything else that we're doing over here at Blue to Gold, you know what to do. Share with your friends. Hit the like button. Okay. Until next time, my friends, stay safe and make good case law.